So in this tutorial, this basic tutorial, we're going to be talking about lighting and value. I was asked to do this specific topic, so I thought I'd be nice enough to oblige. So anyway, the way lighting and value go together are essentially value, and I'll just do a little sketch here so you can see. So if I take some black with the brush, value really works. It's really a spectrum of darkness to light. So if we have our first kind of edge of the gradient, we have this black, and let's just say, I'll fill it in here so you can see it. This is the white. If I wanted to cheat, I can just use the gradient tool like this. Oops. Oh wow. There we go. Make sure you got the right marquee selected. So there's a really easy way to make gradients in Photoshop. You just hit this guy over here. It's the gradient tool. And then they have presets, or you can set your own by using these sliders. The ones up here are opacity. The ones down here are color. And you can add more or remove them. Lots of fun stuff. But anyway, so that's essentially a value scale right here. And right here we have, dark, and here we have light. Now, when I work, I like to avoid pure dark and pure or black. Wait. When I work, I like to avoid these. So I don't like to use these two areas. The reason being that it's very rare to find pure white or pure black in the real world. Even the darkest shadows are usually not black. So I like to keep it more maybe like in this range. And I'll only go here if I really want an intense highlight. But anyway, that's a value scale. And let's talk a little bit about shading and lighting using value. So if I want to make this sphere, just fill this. Okay, so we've got this sphere, and I'm going to show you another trick. So up here is this little, I'm actually not sure what this guy's called. I guess it's like the layer lock tool. But essentially, if you lock this, transparent pixels, there we go. So if you press this little toggle, you can only paint within this area. So as you can see, if I start over here, oh whoops, this isn't going to work. One moment. Whatever, we'll start fresh. There we go. Okay. Okay, so like I was saying, if I use this transparency lock, use a color you can actually see, you'll notice that it's only going to paint in that area. If I turn it off, then it will paint anywhere. Okay, makes sense. But anyway, so let's turn on the lock now, and I'm going to bring up the hue saturation and just bring up the lightness. I have it hotkeyed to control U. I'm not sure if that's the standard one. If you want to set a hotkey, you can always go to Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and set your own hotkeys. I find it very useful. Anyway, like I was saying, so values. Values help dictate form and lighting. They're very important. The way I like to use them is, well, this is the way they should be used. So let's say we have a sphere like this, kind of a gray sphere. And we have a light source that's over here. And it's shining light like this. So the light will be brightest, or the sphere will be brightest at closest to the light source, or most direct facing to the light source. And anything that's further away or has less of a direct facing to the light source will be darker. So to give you an idea of what it would look like, something like this. Now I can keep subdividing this until it's really smooth, but I think you're starting to get the idea. Actually, let me subdivide it just a little bit more. Now you'll notice that there is conspicuously a darker band here. This is the facing or the angle on this object which is least direct to the light source, and that's called the Terminator, which is kind of a cool name, but that's just actually what it's called. The Terminator, you can see it on planets and stuff too, is the area which is darkest. It's the area where the light can't reach. And I believe I'm using that term correctly. It's been a while since I reviewed. But now you might ask yourself, or you ask me, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. What about the back of the sphere? Now, that's a fair question. Why is this area of the sphere actually not as dark as the Terminator? The reason for that is that you have to take into account bounce light. Now, what bounce light is if we have this sphere on some sort of surface, or if there is something for light to bounce off of, which is where the term bounce light comes from, some of the light, let me just, there we go. Okay, so there we go. So some of the light will go, past the sphere or behind the sphere, and it will bounce here. Okay, that's where the bounce light comes from, and that's why this area, the Terminator, is actually darker. Because if you imagine the light's like this, so let's say we have a light source coming off. So this is the most direct facing right here for our light. Our light's like this. Just pretend that's a little lamp or something. Okay, so our light's here. This is the most direct facing, and as we get less direct, the surface becomes darker. Do you see? So right here, along the Terminator, the light's not really even touching. It barely even touches that part of the surface, so that's why it's so dark. Whereas, this part at least is getting some love from the surrounding environment. Okay. Some other things I want to talk about are just shadow, I guess. So we'll talk about shadow. So shadows are, they can actually be pretty difficult to work on. Shadows can get pretty complex. So basically the way shadows work, and I'm going to lighten this shadow up in a second, but a true shadow is never completely black. Never black. It's always a little bit lighter. So we'll use this tool. Alright. Now, shadows are sort of interesting. The reason they're so interesting, so if we get our shadow, so similar to the lighting, going from the or the values we see on this 3D shape, if we once again visualize where the light is coming from, so let's say it's coming here. Oops. Let's set a common point. What I'm doing right now, by the way, is I'm clicking once, holding. Actually, I don't even have to hold. Sorry. Click once, let go, hold down Shift, click again using the brush tool, and it makes a straight line. So, just a little tip. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, so the way shadows work is the closer the shadow is to the object which is obstructing the light source, the darker the shadow is. Makes sense. There's less light that can get in from other sources or bounce light or whatever. You know, so essentially, it's harder for all these other sources to get in when it's so close. So this is the darkest part, and then it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Also, the further a shadow gets away from an object, the less sharp the edges of the shadow become. So if I actually want to make this realistic, I'll just use the blur tool a little bit. But essentially what happens is there's more diffusion of the light. So over time, if the distance is greater between the object that's casting the shadow here and the shadow that's being cast, essentially, errant particles of light will kind of mess up the edge and make it become less focused. Whereas if it's closer, there's less room for error. You can kind of think of it. So the closer an object is, the closer the shadow is to the object which is casting it, the more intense it is, the sharper the edge is, and the more true to the form it is. Whereas the further out you get, it diffuses, it becomes a little bit more hazy and blurred, and it's not as intense. Anyway, that's really all value is. It's pretty simple when you explain it. It's just this gradient essentially, and this is the value. This is the value range essentially. Anything from dark to light, and you'll see I don't really ever go to black, like I said, and this is close to white but not true white. So that's how light and values work. Very simply, by the way. There's depending on what material you're using, there are all types of different ways that light behaves. There's a thing called subsurface scattering and whatnot, but we can get into that in another tutorial. This is just a basic one, just talking about value, shading, and light. So I hope this was informative. If you have any suggestions for other videos or basic tutorials you'd like to see, please leave a comment, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.